our first ever PFL Europe Championship.
We've started something special here.
Welcome one and all to the PFL Europe Championship Preview Show. I'm Andy Shepherd along with the outlaw Dan Hardy. But look, Dan, on this show we got to call you what you really are. Two-hat Dan Hardy. Not only are you a pundit for PFL and PFL Europe, but also you're the head of fighter operations for PFL Europe. So you've got, let's be honest, you've got some real skin on the game, both sides of the camera. But look, before we talk about what's going to happen in Dublin on December 8th, let's just rewind a little bit to our playoffs in Paris. What an electric night. How are you feeling coming off the back of that?
I mean, it completely took me by surprise. Like, I knew Cedric Doumbe was a star. I knew that the Lazy King was going to create a real stir in the building when he walked out. But the reaction of the French fans was something to behold. The atmosphere that they created in there, and of course then, Doumbe walking out with the mattress and all the theatrics before the face-off. It was an incredible night. It really was amazing. And, we're already looking at plans for 2024 to go back to France. And I think that the fans are going to appreciate the new fighters that we're signing for that show.
Part of me almost feels like PFL should have just a France league. That's how good the reception was, how good that event was. And look, from my standpoint, I was standing in the centre of the cage when Cedric came out, and I've had the pleasure of announcing a whole bunch of athletes into the combative area, and that was something so special. Genuinely, a goosebumps moment. Just watching that theatrical entrance, but the reception, the performance, you couldn't have written it more perfectly. Can you give me an inkling, Dan? What's next for Cedric?
Well, I mean, he keeps calling people out that there are certain fighters that he's looking to topple, certain fighters that he's looking to hand their first loss to. So we've got our work cut out for us trying to figure out what we're going to do with Cedric next. I mean, he wants to fight everybody. He wants to take on the world champions immediately. Cedric's still very early in his MMA career, and I still feel like there's a lot that we need to know about him as a fighter and how he's adapted his striking to mixed martial arts. Especially given the fact that the performance was 8-9 seconds in Paris. It's
9 seconds.
We didn't really see much. It was unreal. I was hoping to see a little more of his game, bit takedown defense, etc. But it just shows how dangerous he is. We're gonna have to find someone with more experience and I don't know, maybe a faster wrestling game plan to take him on next time.
That's it. But I think that's a testament to Cedric, that people who are very experienced, like, hey, let me get this guy on my record soon before he gets too good, because then maybe I won't have a chance. But look, Dan, we know that next year, 2024, is going to be an incredible year already when we've got talent like Cedric Doumbe in the PFL. But let's look how we're going to close out this year, 2023, with the PFL Europe Championship. The first one, the inaugural one. We're going to get 4 inaugural PFL Europe champions who not only get to hold the titles, they get a cool 100 grand in their pocket and potentially get to go over to PFL Global, okay? Let's talk about those championship fights. So much to look forward to. Let's look at the light heavyweight matchup first of all. Simeon Powell versus Jacob Nadeau.
These are big, powerful shots from Simeon Powell.
Simeon, we've talked about it before, very much a flag bearer for PFL Europe. We know how invested everyone behind the scenes is in this guy. He was put forward to the media as this brand was launched. And so far, the storybook that a lot of us think is trying to be written here is coming to fruition. Just one more fight for Simeon to potentially become that inaugural PFL Europe champion. Let's rewind. How do you think he looked in his last fight against Daniel Ladero? A last-minute change of opponent?
You know, I thought he looked a little cautious, if I'm honest, because I've seen what this guy can do. You know, I've watched him spar in the gym. We've seen what he's done previously in his PFL career, especially with his first regular season fight finish against Muhammad Amin, where he showed that ground game that we've been kind of wondering about. Like, we know how dangerous he is at range. We know how long his reach is, and how much of a challenge he is for everybody at striking range. But then when he showed that ground game as well, he really stepped out as the more complete mixed martial artist on the night, and I guess put a lot of questions in people's minds as to where he's going to be challenged next. So this is another opportunity for Simeon to really step up his game, but also an opportunity, yes, but probably a necessity in this fight. He's going to have to show a new level if he's going to beat Nedo.
I know these guys are light heavyweights, they're big dudes, but really in the flesh, Jakob is massive. How he makes that 205 pound weight limit, I do not know. Do you think it's that strength and perhaps explosiveness that Jakob will have to rely on and try and get it done early?
I just think it's something that he knows is in his arsenal, and it's won him so many fights before that he's definitely going to be leaning into that physicality. He walks in a room and you kind of feel the temperature drop a couple of degrees. He is a very scary individual, and you've got to think, if he's walking Sim down in that first round and Sim's hitting him with good shots but everything's bouncing off, that could really get inside Simeon's head, and then that's going to give Nedo the ability to push him around and bully him a little bit, and that's where he's going to come on really, really strong, because he's got a lot of confidence right now because he knows he can stop people. But when, if in that first or second round he starts to realise that he can dominate the space and bully Simeon, then his confidence is going to find an all-time high. He's going to see that championship belt around his waist before it's actually there, and that's a dangerous thing with someone as lethal as he is.
You talk about these being championship fights, 5 rounds. How does that affect the preparation, the pacing of an athlete going into a contest? Normally these guys are fighting in 3 rounds. Those extra 2 rounds, that's a lot you got to keep in the gas tank if it does go the extra mile, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, absolutely. I mean, you have to do more conditioning in your training camp to prepare for those extra couple of rounds. I mean, 10 minutes is a long time, especially once you've been fighting for 15 already. That has an added amount of anxiety going in. Like, we saw a similar kind of an anxiety with Ngannou facing Fury, where he was like, well, this is 10 rounds. I'm going to pace myself and I'm going to take my time and choose when to engage. And it takes a level of maturity to be able to make that decision, which I think we saw from Simeon in his last fight. We've not had the opportunity to see that from Nedo yet, but we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt that he is that fighter. And then, it's a case of who can make the best decisions in the space of 25 minutes and manage their energy. Because all of these fights could go into deep waters. All of these fighters could find themselves dropped and picking themselves back up off the canvas. And this is why the championship rounds are added to a championship fight, because sometimes it takes 25 minutes to separate these guys, and sometimes it takes 25 minutes to force people to reach that level where they're deserving of a championship belt.
Yeah, 5 rounds with these 2 big guys banging down on each other. I'm so excited for this one. Who's going to be the inaugural PFL Europe champion in the light heavyweight division? We're going to find out on December 8th in Dublin.
With the 3rd round finish.
Now let's look at the women's flyweight champion, Dakota Ducheva versus Valentina Skatidze. This one, again, Dakota, just like Simeon, has been put up there as a face of PFL Europe, and each and every time she's backed it up. How much of a test is this for Dakota?
It's an unknown commodity, if I'm honest. I don't really know, because I thought we saw a really, really strong performance from Skatidze in Newcastle. She showed a lot of determination and grit, her ability to close range down with aggression. She's got good wrestling and good grappling skills, which would be common sense to utilise in this fight against Dakota, who, although she did show her grappling skills in the Malin Hermansson fight, she is very much a striker in mixed martial arts. this is an opportunity for Skititsi to really upset upset Dakota's plans to become a European champion, and she could quite easily do that by just being on her case from the opening round, closing her down, getting a good body lock and forcing her to wrestle and try and stay on her feet. Because one thing we don't see a great deal from Dakota is her on the back foot and her being forced to work against her opponent's game plan. And I think certainly if she's got good coaching in Skititsi's camp, which we know she has, they'll be very smart about how they approach this. They'll see Dakota's frame and reach and think a body lock is the ideal way to approach this. And then they'll try and ragdoll her from that position, and we'll see if Dakota can A, recover, and B, get some space so she can start landing her strikes. At distance, of course, she has a clear advantage, I would say, but then you still can't count out someone like Skititsi who's got nothing to lose and everything to gain, and trains at a gym local to the arena. There's going to be a lot of support in the building for her to cause the upset.
Well, look, we've talked about these two athletes. Why don't we hear from one now? Actually joined by Dakota herself.
So right now I am joined by Dakota, who has just finished a training session and is, weeks away from stepping into the smart cage in Dublin. How are you feeling, Dakota?
I'm good, thank you, yeah. Still a bit red, I think, from sparring, but I'm good. Everything's going well, yeah. Coming to the end of another week here in Florida, so I've got 2 weeks left here in the States, and then I'm going to come home for a week and get used to being back in the UK before I head to Dublin. But two tough weeks left for me, yeah. I like to go all out until the end, and make sure, as long as I've got no injuries and stuff, then I like to, keep the training up and feel strong. So we're still full steam ahead at the moment, yeah.
So I'm interested to know what this year has been like for you, because I was always kind of fight to fight, and I talked to Sean O'Connell about it, who went through the PFL system, and you started in March, you had a great performance there, but then you were out for a little while waiting around for the playoffs to come about. Like, what's it been like this year, kind of going through the PFL process? And do you prefer the gap between March and September, or do you prefer the playoff gap between now and the championships?
That big gap that I had from March to September was a little bit different for me. Like you said, I like to be active, and I've always last year I took four fights last year, and I probably could have done another one really, but I like to stay active, and I feel like that's when I'm at my best. So now, like I said, going straight into another camp, apart from injuries and things like that, is perfect for me. I've really enjoyed the format of it. I would have liked to maybe have had a fight between that March and September time, but I suppose give me a bit of time to live my life as well. Being in camp the whole year is tough, even though I've done it every other time before. But I quite enjoyed it, to be honest. It's just, I think the one thing that I would say is that because it's a tournament format, the pressure of going into each fight camp, I feel like has built each time. Before, when I was going into just one fight deals, it was like, I win that fight and that's it. There's no pressure for the next one. It's kind of it starts all over again. Whereas this time it's just kept building and building throughout the tournament. So that's been very new to me. But as for staying active, I've enjoyed that. It's been good for me.
So what do you think to your opponent? Because obviously she missed out on competing in Paris, which, I'd be the same. I would rather have had a couple of fights in that time just to kind of stay sharp. Do you feel like there's an advantage that you got to fight in Paris? And the difficulty, I would say, if I was approaching it, is that you kind of don't have a lot to go off because you only saw that version of her in Newcastle. How are you preparing for her?
Yeah, it's difficult because obviously she's not got a massive record. She got a bye in the second round, so I didn't get to see a performance there. I haven't even watched the first fight really because I've not seen it anywhere. It's not been out. So for me, I'm not too bothered. I feel like I'm at the stage now where they can put anyone in front of me and I'll be confident enough to, believe in my own abilities and know that I can take it anywhere. And I think the work that I've been putting in, like groundwork, striking, just all areas, I feel like I'm quite well-rounded now. So, wherever she wants to take it, I feel like I'm good enough to challenge her and be able to fight her wherever she wants to go.
Well, we saw that in Newcastle, obviously, with your ground game. I've watched that fight a few times where you caught her arm and twisted it up her back at the same time as choking her out. It was pretty slick. Are you enjoying the ground game as much as you do your striking, or are you still kind of got the preference towards the kicking and punching?
Still a striker, definitely. Still love the striking much more than I do the ground game. But I think that's just because I've done it for so many years, and it was obviously my first love, striking. So that'll always be my favourite. But I do really love just learning new things on the ground, just like constantly being tested. Like in stand up, even in the UK, against girls, I'm winning most rounds, So for me, there's not much challenge there, whereas coming over here now and like I'm losing rounds in the gym, I'm having to like work on new things, and for me that's kind of like what pushes me. I get frustrated and sometimes I'll come back crying and be like, I'm not the best, you know what I mean? But that's kind of what's pushing me to get better, and I'm absolutely loving like getting better at it and being able to work at something new.
So a few weeks to go now. So what's the process between now and stepping in the smart cage? You've got a couple more weeks at American Top Team, and then you say you're heading back. What's the purpose of heading back before? Is it to acclimatise or a bit of tradition maybe?
Yeah, I think definitely to acclimatise, just head back. I'll probably be a little bit jet lagged, but I think I have a lot of comfort in going home for a week first. My mum and my brother have always been my coaches since I started, so having their little input in that last week is a little bit of a ritual for me, I think. So to go home and just finish that last week with them is always like something that I like to do. So while I'm climatising, it's the perfect opportunity, and then head to Dublin and pick up this PFL belt if I can carry it. It was heavy last time.
It is. It surprised me when we were taking photos with it in Paris, but it's certainly a good motivating factor as well as the money. A belt like that is something that you keep a hold of forever and remember the day. Should be a very exciting night in Dublin, December 8th. And good luck with the rest of training camp. Good luck with the travels home and that final week of preparation with mum and brother. And we'll see you in Dublin.
Thank you very much. I'll see you there.
Oh, good right from Malambo.
I think he knows he's got Taleb hurt though here.
Great timing there from Malambo.
Committing to.
Front kick to the face. Refusing to fall.
Right, Dan, let's look at the Bantamweight Championship as well. Franz Malambo versus Khurshid Kakarov. Look, Malambo in his hometown. This is a fight that we talked about him last time. We were both around when he sort of debuted on the scene, an IMAF champion. Now he's had 20 professional fights, and finally I think we're seeing the Franz Malambo that we always thought there was the potential to see. Last minute change of opponent for him as well last time out, and he said he doesn't train for a specific opponent, but he won on a split decision. Do you think he was happy with that?
No, I don't think he was. I don't think he's been happy with either of his performances this year, and that's because he holds himself to a high standard, and he knows what he's capable of. He came into Berlin after having a couple of years out, and he just didn't feel like he had his timing or his his range control and management down to where it normally is for him. And then he short notice opponent, as you said, a very, very difficult and tricky and skilled veteran in front of him that he had to dig deep into his game to find the right tools to get the decision. And it might be the same case here as well. We talk about the championship rounds. This is another fight where we might need 25 minutes to separate them. Like Khurshid Kakarov he's been very, very impressive so far this year. Handing Ali Taleb his first loss was very impressive. What he was able to do in Berlin, same thing. Sharp, accurate with his strikes, very tricky as well. Got lots of different things in his game that he's going to challenge a veteran like Malambo, which really that's where his experience and his time on the mats at SBG comes into play. He's going to need that experience against someone tricky like Kakarov.
He's got another added layer here. This is his hometown. He's going to have that place, the three arena, packed out with friends, with family, with training partners. How much is that going to play into his mind, knowing that he could achieve this or lose this opportunity for the $100,000 and the inaugural PFL European champion in front of so many people who know and love him?
It does put a different kind of pressure on. Khurshid is coming into this territory for one reason. He's coming in to win the money and win the belt. Like, of course, he's going to love Ireland, he's going to love the fans, and he's going to love the experience. But when he leaves that city, he either leaves the champion or he doesn't. The difference with Franz is that he wakes up in that city every day and he goes to the gym in that city, and the arena is a very familiar local space where he's been to many fights before and he will do in the future. So that's either going to hold a very kind of special place in his heart because he won a European Championship there, or it's going to burn every time he steps in the door. And that does play into your mind a little bit. I've been there myself, and you're like, I kind of don't want to spoil this arena with a rough night in the smart cage. So there is a bit of pressure there for him, for sure.
Look, no one likes a consistent burn when walking around their hometown, Dan. So look, another intriguing fight there. Franz Malambo versus Kusher Kakarov. Bantamweight championship on the line.
Timing on that takedown. Mitchell's not giving him any space, though.
I just love this attitude that he's bringing. Oh,
Jakub Kaszuba stays undefeated. What a performance from this young man. Mitchell timed the takedown perfectly. Good back kick. There's the power of Kaszuba.
Dan, let's round out these championship bouts as well. We've got the lightweight championship. Another hometown hero in John Mitchell against Jakub Kaszuba. Same thing again. John knew this was in the pipeline when he began this PFL Europe season. He knew if he went all the way, he'd be in his hometown fighting for that championship. It's here. How's John feeling, do you think, just getting so close to this event now?
Well, I know he's determined. He's messaged me a few times, and he's been telling me that this is going to be a whole new level of John Mitchell. He's going to show us, and he's going to show his opponent Kaszuba what he's really capable of. I think he feels like he's been a little bit guarded in his last couple of performances. He had a very tricky Gayson Deraishu. He ended up rematching again in Paris, which is never ideal. You want a different opponent and a different challenge, but he was able to, utilize the same skills both times to more effect, I would say, in the second time because he had more resistance from his opponent. But I think this is going to be a very different fight. I think he's going to be determined to put his opponent away and make sure there are no questions and no doubters after this one. But again, another very, very tough, very evenly matched fight. Kaszuba is an absolute powerhouse that's got skills at every range of the game.
Look, Kaszuba, the Auditor, one of my favourite nicknames we have going. Look, 10-0, undefeated. And another one of these fighters where when I'm in the smart cage announcing these guys, I look at him, I'm like, how on earth are you getting to that weight? He's built like a 185er. He's so big at that weight and undefeated. Is this a huge test for Mitchell in his hometown in the final?
Yeah, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. I mean, I don't think we've seen the best version of John Mitchell yet. You go back to his fights before PFL and he has some wicked knockouts that I think we might see him trying to roll out in Dublin. But for sure, this is a very, very tough test. As you said, Kaszuba is a powerhouse. He's very heavily muscled. He's very strong in the clinch. He's got great grappling skills, as we saw against Radu Maxim in Berlin. And again, I don't really feel like we've seen the full extent of his game. I feel like there's a lot more to it that we're going to probably squeeze out in the 25 minutes of a championship bout. One thing I would say if I'm John Mitchell is I'm thinking all that muscle mass needs feeding for 25 minutes, and I would be trying to make him use that as much as possible. Wear him out and force him to carry those heavy muscles more like a burden than a benefit. There are also benefits as well as being heavily muscled, but you have to manage that energy a bit more carefully because all that muscle mass does take a lot of fuel to keep going.
Dan, so many championship fights to look forward to in Dublin, but as well, so many other fights in Dublin on December 8th. One that I'm particularly looking forward to is the homecoming of Nate Kelly.
Yeah, a very, very skilled technical fighter. He's been studying under John Kavanagh for a long time at SBG, and you've got to imagine that the amount of information that he's been able to impart into a student like Nate Kelly is, it must be a very exciting project for someone like John Kavanagh to have a student like that, you know what I mean? And I think he's shown us what he's capable of so far, fighting on the PFL, but he's not had this opportunity to fight on home soil, and I think that's going to add extra 10% to his game. He's a very, very skilled fighter, a very mature, high fight IQ, and you can see him kind of picking his opponents apart and dismantling them. And this is a reason why I feel like this is going to be a tough test for him, because Solomos is a long-range striker. He's very chaotic. He likes to stand on the front foot and whip his punches at his opponent from a distance. And then if you close range down, he's good at grappling off his back as well. So this is going to really pressure Nate to make good decisions in quick succession, and deal with the pressure of being being the feature bout of the home show.
Now, I know you talk to all these fighters almost on a daily basis. They're always in contact with you, trying to ask you questions and so forth. This homecoming for Nate, how's he feeling about it?
He's excited, he's excited. I think, given the fact that he's been fighting on the PFL roster for a while now, and he's been, a feature bout on, in places like Madison Square Garden, like he's had the great opportunities to have those walkouts in the special arenas, but there will not be an arena as special as this for him. The history of mixed martial arts that's happened there, his relationship to the arena and the growth of mixed martial arts in Ireland is very much tied to this space that he's going to be competing. But this is his opportunity. He's watched everybody else's opportunities to do the walk and to headline these shows and to have the fans behind them. This is his opportunity. He's coming back with the momentum that he's been building on the PFL roster, and he's going to walk into the arena with that momentum on the night and put it on his opponent. And the fans are going to be so grateful that he's back on home soil competing that I think they're going to really rally around him and give him that extra bit of energy that he's going to need.
I mean, this is going to be a great top of the bill fight, December 8th. Another fighter who's looking to regain momentum, though, and also a hometown lad, Dylan Tuke, coming off a loss. Some of us expected to see him in the PFL Europe Championship bout December 8th. Didn't go his way. How's Dylan feeling ahead of this, should we call it a redemption bout?
Yeah, he's feeling very angry and very focused. He's still carrying that loss as a motivator from Paris, and it's going to be annoying for him to watch the championship bout go ahead with him not being a part of it. But he's on a feature place on the card. There's going to be a lot of interest around his bout. He's fighting Yazid Chishane, who we saw in Paris is an absolute handful. Comes forward throwing bombs constantly. Like stylistically, I think this is going to be a show stealer. This and the McGillin Wesley Meyer fight, they're the ones that are going to be drawn out back and forths. And I still feel like there's a lot more to Dylan Tuke that we have yet to see.
It's hard not to be a fan of Dylan Tuke. I remember in Paris at the weigh-ins, you and I are up there as the fighters that are coming together, and the intensity that Dylan brings those face-offs. I mean, I wanted to get off the stage at that point. It's something very unique he brings.
Yeah, it is. It is a real intensity, and not all fighters can generate that. And sometimes when they're doing it, it doesn't feel genuine, and it feels very, very genuine from Dylan Tuke. Like he is in his element when he's in a fist fight with somebody, and he's going to be determined to make himself a contender next year around. He's going to want that European title around his waist no matter what. And I think in 2024 we're going to see him back trying to get to it.
And Dan, we've got some incredible PFL debuts coming up in Dublin as well. First up, Welshman Brett Johns, a UFC Bellator veteran at 19-3, is stepping inside a PFL cage for the very first time.
Yeah, I mean, there are two fighters on this card particularly. Of course, Brett Johns being one of them. I know you're going to mention Tom Breeze as well in the next breath. Those two guys are, I mean, some of the highest level fighters that we've got in Europe right now. For me, Brett Johns is a legitimate top 10 bantamweight, and I think with the opportunity to prove it again, he will do. He's had some rough luck recently. He's not been able to get a great deal of competition because, honestly, people don't want to fight him. And what you'll see here is that he's going up to featherweight. He's taking on David Toner-Kroll, who is a very, very aggressive and exciting individual, very well known to the French fans, fighting on Aries, and I think that this is going to be a good test for both of them. Brett Johns has got the experience advantage and the winning record in comparison, but he is moving up a weight class. So the things that he's very good at, his grappling skills, are going to be challenged by someone that is also a very good grappler, but also has the physicality to, put his foot on the brakes if he needs to slow this thing down a bit and potentially hit with more force as well than Brett Johns. that for me is a fascinating fight. I've been wanting to get Brett Johns on the PFL roster for a long while. And then same thing with Tom Breeze. Tom is looking to move over onto the global roster next year. He's a world-class light heavyweight and a world-class middleweight, if you want to be specific. And his opponent, Clayton Silva, is a former Brave champion who's, he's moved up to light heavyweight, same as Tom Breeze. He looks far more physical and far more healthy at this weight class. And I expect that to be one of the most high-level battles on the card.
Man, I can't wait to see those two guys in action. Also, another matchup featuring two PFL debutants, Andreas Binder versus Daniele Scatizzi. You booked this one. Talk to me about it.
Well, I've had my eye on Binder for a while. He was a very, very good welterweight, and then he moved over onto levels in Holland, and just went from strength to strength. He's the lightweight champion there. Coming off a really big win, he has all the potential in the world. Training at SBG Charlestown alongside Owen Roddy, who was one of McGregor's coaches. His opponent, Daniel Scatizzi, who's the brother of Valentina, who's fighting Dakota. And, Scatizzi's looking to come and steal the show and steal Binder's opportunity in the tournament next year. It's going to be interesting to see how Binder deals with this, and potentially someone that knows his game quite well already.
Dan, as if this card wasn't stacked enough, and I know you put this together, so we've got you to thank for this, but also, December 8th in Dublin, the return of the McGrizzler, Lewis McGillin. And again, just like Dylan Took, he can be a handful on fight week, but that's what makes him so exciting. Such a young fighter, 8-0. Are we going to see an evolution of the McGrizzler coming into Dublin?
Well, I think so, and I hope so. This kid's right early in his career. He's been putting people away quite comfortably. His performance in Berlin was standout for me. He had a very, very tough Amralis Sadosharov in front of him, who took all of his shots in the first round, but wasn't able to see the end of the second. Really, really dangerous southpaw striker, very well measured. Echoes of Conor McGregor. I don't want that to be overutilized, but you can certainly see the similarities there. And he's fighting Wesley Meyer, who is, I watched him come through Cage Warriors, one of my favorites, very, very intense. He's on the mats at GB Top Team coaching the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes, and then next thing he's throwing down with some of the best bantamweights and featherweights on the mat at GB Top Team. Very, very exciting fight, and especially because these guys don't like each other as well. This has been simmering for a little while now. I think we're going to get some fireworks.
Well, another great addition to this already stacked card, Dan. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I believe we've got Lewis on the line now. Lewis McGillin, the McGrizzler. Thank you for joining us, mate. I know you're putting final preparations to your camp. First things first, how's it been going?
Been in the wars again, mate. Been getting all the work.
I can see a few little bumps and bruises there, mate.
I know. That's what it's about, innit? I love it, yeah. I love it when I'm bleeding as well. Just rub it all over my face. I'm like, yeah, let's go again, another. So, yeah, been a good camp anyway.
Dan, I can see why you signed this guy. Just from this first sentence, I can see why he needs to be in the PFL.
He's my kind of... Well, it's like that thing you posted on your Instagram the other day with the Knights fighting. That's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to get him a suit of armour and find someone that will fight him in a sword fight.
Any day, I'd well do that. I'll do it for free, mate. I'd fight for free, but at least it's an honour I can actually fight for money, innit? So, buzzing with that.
Lewis, how excited are you for December 8th to get back in there? You've caused a commotion every time you've stepped into a PFL cage. Are we going to expect the same again?
Of course, man, of course. He is not ready anyway. I've seen him in person. He flapped it, and now he's buzzing because he's actually fighting on a platform to get chinned. That's all it is. He's gonna get chinned. I can't wait to fight him anyway. I just can't wait.
Lewis, how would you rate your performances so far in PFL? Have you been happy with your performances?
No. I'm never happy with my performances because I know there's so much more I could offer. I know there's so much things I can do. I'm still young in the game, and I've got a lot of things I've been bringing into my arsenal I'm going to use. There's a lot of things I feel like I've not shown as well in my game, and maybe in the next few fights, even this fight, I can actually showcase my skill set and prove that I am an all-round mixed martial artist.
Well, let me tell you this. I was showing your last knockout to Lennox Lewis the other week, and he was very, very impressed, mate.
All right, Dan. Clang.
Yeah, I pulled it out on my phone when I was chatting with him, and I was like, "You got to see this kid's hands. You got to see this knockout." and he went wide-eyed. You know, a good fighter can spot another good fighter, and he can see that special quality that you've got for sure. Tell me about that last fight with Amrali, because I mean most people can't take those shots in the first round, but you still managed to put him away clean in the second.
I could feel he was tough. We all know he was tough. I seen it, and like when I was in that fight, honestly, this is how mad it is in there, yeah. He was like egging me on, we were talking a bit in there, and he was like, at one point, halfway through the fight, he was like, let's go. And I carried on hitting him, and I was hurting him, I was wobbling him, and then slowly he was fading. He went from like, let's go, to like, It was like talking to himself, saying, keep going. He was having a chat with himself in there. I seen a man breaking there. It was crazy, and I knew it was only I just got to take one more on the button, and I'll take him out. It got a bit hectic for me, but I was calculated. I was ready now. I wasn't tired or anything like that. I was ready to go. But I'm impressed by it. The boxing was good in there, but there's so much more I could have showcased in there. Definitely.
And Lewis, we haven't seen you get out of the second round yet in your professional career. Are you looking for some more miles on the clock in Dublin? Would you like to go into the third round to test yourself in those waters?
If it comes, it comes. I know I can go to these deep waters. I know I can do this. But if you think you can walk through this world knocking everyone out, and so be it. End of the day, I'm not going to force anything. What's ever going to be written is what it is. End of the day, and I'm just going in there doing my thing. I don't see it as like it should be this and that. I'm putting so much emphasis in it. I may say I'm going to knock him out and this and that, but I don't put so much emphasis in it. I don't deep it too much. I'm just like, it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? I fire my timing. It's there. I got loads of things in my arsenal I can showcase. End of the day, and if I go deep waters, I'll go deep waters. Let's bring it. I can swim, me. Do you know
what are you expecting from the Irish fans? Because of course, I mean, a lot of people are going to draw some parallels between the way that you fight and the way that McGregor put Brandao away in that same arena. And I know you've got a lot of Irish support as well. Like, what are you anticipating when you walk out of that arena?
Just a big atmosphere and like electric, man. Like the Irish are mad, aren't they? I love him. I'm literally Irish heritage, man. I'm half Irish, and I'm like literally get to see like. That's my ancestral land, innit? That's what I'm saying. Going to war, my ancestral land. So I'm here to defend that, and I just can't wait, man. Like the Irish crowd are mental, and I'm fighting a Brazilian in the free arena, and I know a certain guy that fought in Brazil in the free arena. It's all adding up. End of the day.
Well, Lewis, you look like you're in great shape. We're excited to see you in there December 8th live in Dublin. The McGrizzler returns.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me.
Lewis, thank you so much, mate. Appreciate it,
Yeah.
brother.
Dan, great to see Lewis being in great spirits and look so close to this fight. That's a good thing to see.
Yeah, it is. And I wouldn't expect anything less. You know, the closer this fight gets, the more excited he is. You know, for most people, this would be a very daunting moment, stepping into the smart cage for a fist fight. But it's almost like he's going to Disneyland. You know what I mean? There's definitely something maniacal about that young man. I'm excited to see him compete again.
He loves a scrap. Look, Dan, thank you. Thank you to yourself and the whole PFL Europe team for putting together a huge card like this. And also, someone else we're going to bring up on this one is someone that, if you've been around the European MMA scene for a while, you may have recognised this guy from several years ago. We always called him sort of the mini Conor McGregor. He used to dress up like Conor, come to all the MMA events, have pictures with everyone. Now, he's stepping into a PFL cage. Nathan Kelly is going to be on the card in Dublin.
Yeah, absolutely, and not to be confused by Nate Kelly, the pro that's headlining the card. Yeah, Nathan Kelly's going to be kicking off the night. Yeah, a lot of people will remember this kid. He was, sitting on one of his parents' shoulders at a McGregor press conference and saying that he was going to be champion one day. And I remember him being around all the time when McGregor was on his rise through the ranks, and he had a lot of attention, a lot of interest in his career because he was a kickboxing champion as a kid and crossed over to mixed martial arts. He's a very integral part of the SBG gym, and still an amateur, but getting an opportunity to do the walk to a PFL cage. It's going to be great to see him perform on that stage and to get some of his fans in the building for the atmosphere as well.
What a night it's going to be for Nathan Kelly, December 8th in Dublin. Dan, what a night it's going to be for all of us. We're going to crown our first ever PFL Europe champions. For you, as putting all of this together, being a part of this from the very start, looking at this championship event, is this what you imagined you'd be seeing at the end of the year?
Yeah, honestly, it is. It's and I think that when we finally arrive in Dublin and the fans start streaming in the building and the atmosphere starts building, I think we're going to then realise what we've achieved as an organisation this year. You know, we had two great regular season events in Newcastle and Berlin. The playoffs were outstanding, and then to bring it home for Christmas and finish off in December in Dublin. It's going to be a special atmosphere, and I think the fights are going to live up to the occasion as well. A lot of people trying to prove themselves and prove their capabilities, and people trying to get their hands on gold belts and big bags of cash. It's a good night for everybody in December.
Look, I think come December 8th, everyone's going to be calling you Santa Claus, Dan, because you bought Christmas early to all of us.
Because of my grey beard. Because of my grey beard. Yeah.
And you're going to be handing out lumps of coal as well. Wow. But look, honestly, you put together such an incredible card. This entire first season of PFL Europe has been amazing. I've no doubt that December 8th is going to deliver an incredible curtain call. And look, so much more to look forward to next year. This is just the start for PFL. You can catch us live on DAZN on December 8th from Dublin.
He's still standing.
The atmosphere in this place is insane.
The crowd, the energy. I've never experienced anything like it. In Dublin, December 8th, and make more European mixed martial arts history.